Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Story 28.
And this story is basically ultimate exploration of the extreme moral codes of those shadows. We're looking at the anatomy of radical hospitality and, the sheer unstoppable mechanics of karmic debt.
Which is such a cool concept. And I think to really get into it, let's start with the man doing the knocking.
Good place to start.
Because to understand the weight of a family ripping apart their house for a stranger, we kind of have to look exactly who this fugitive really is.
Right. The text introduces us right away to our protagonist.
Yeah, a man named Ding Qianxi. He is from a place called Zucheng. And the author is very explicit about his status, like he is incredibly wealthy.
The specific phrasing is that he is rich in money and grain.
Right. Which, in an agrarian society, that's everything.
Oh, absolutely. He has the tangible, vital resources that dictate survival.
But he's not just some landlord sitting in a walled compound, right, like counting his rice all day.
No, not at all. The text describes him as a knight-errant, a guy who loves justice and deeply admires the character of a historical figure named Guo.
Okay, so let's unpack that, because that specific descriptor, knight-errant, that feels like it's doing a lot of heavy lifting here.
It's doing a tremendous amount of heavy lifting. In Chinese history, the term is xia.
Xia, got it.
And when we hear wealthy and money and grain, we usually picture someone deeply entrenched in the establishment, right? Someone utilizing the legal system to protect their assets.
Sure, like a politician or a noble.
But a knight-errant operates entirely outside the standard legal framework.
So they're outlaws.
Essentially, yes. The Xia were vigilantes, power brokers, enforcers. They righted wrongs according to their own highly specific personal sense of justice.
Completely bypassing the official courts.
Completely. They didn't care about the empire's laws.
Which is so interesting, because I always think of the knight-errant as this, like, lone swordsman wandering through bamboo forests.
Right, the classic movie trope.
Yeah. But this guy has money and grain, so he sounds more like an old-school mob boss.
Right.
But maybe with a heart of gold.
A mob boss with a heart of gold is a really good way to frame it.
Someone who answers to the code of the streets rather than the law of the land.
Exactly. He might run an underground economy, but he also makes sure the neighborhood kids have winter coats, and that no one gets harassed by corrupt tax collectors.
Right, he protects his own.
The mob boss analogy is highly accurate for this specific era, and the text gives us a massive clue about his operational style by mentioning his idol, Guo.
Okay, who is Guo? Is he a real person?
He was. Guo wasn't just a random historical footnote. He is the absolute archetype of the Han Dynasty knight-errant.
Oh, wow. So he's like the godfather of this whole concept.
Pretty much. Guo was known for extreme, ruthless loyalty. He maintained a massive network of followers, harbored fugitives, and used violence to protect his territory.
Which I'm guessing the government didn't love.
The state viewed Guo as a profound threat because he offered an alternative system of authority.
Right, if you have a problem, you don't go to the police. You go to Guo.
Exactly. People went to him for justice, not the local magistrate. So, by aligning Ding Qianxi with Guo, the author is telling us that Ding is an outlaw power broker.
He commands immense respect and fear in Zucheng.
Yes. He adheres to a strict personal moral code built on favors, debts, and honor. But he is fundamentally an enemy of the state's monopoly on power.
Which explains the inciting incident in the entire story. Because literally in the very next sentence, the text says, an imperial censor visits his area to conduct an inquiry.
And Ding immediately goes on the run.
Right. He vanishes. He doesn't hire advocates. He doesn't try to bribe the local officials. He just drops everything and flees.
Well, we need to look at the mechanics of what an imperial censor actually was to understand Ding's panic here.
Yeah, because it sounds like a tax auditor or something.
It's so much worse than that. An imperial censor in the Qing dynasty was not a local beat cop. They were the direct, unblinking eye of the emperor.
Oh, man. So they have real power.
Terrifying, almost unlimited investigative power. They traveled from the capital to the provinces, and they could bypass local hierarchies entirely.
Like federal agents swooping into a small town.
Exactly. They had the authority to impeach top officials, seize assets, and in many cases order executions without a standard trial.
Without a trial. Wow.
Yeah. For a man like Ding, who operates this shadow justice system, the arrival of a censor is an existential threat.
Because they don't care how many bags of grain he has.
Right. Whatever his justice-loving activities were, they were serious enough to warrant the attention of the empire's highest investigative body.
Ding knows that his local wealth and his street reputation mean absolutely nothing to a censor.
Nothing at all. The state has arrived to crush the alternative authority. So he runs.
So he flees his home territory of Zusheng, and he ends up in this place called Anhui.
Right.
And it is here that the environment itself turns against him.
Yeah.
He is trapped by this relentless, unceasing rain.
The storm of the century, basically.
The text makes a massive point of emphasizing this storm. It stops him dead in his tracks. He's forced to seek shelter because he physically cannot move forward.
And the unceasing rain acts as a brilliant narrative equalizer here.
How so?
Well, think about the function of wealth and power. Wealth is essentially a buffer between you and the harsh, chaotic realities of the physical world, right?
Yeah, it buys you out of problems.
Exactly. It buys you secure transportation, it buys you guarded shelter, it buys you the influence to make things disappear.
But not the weather.
Exactly. Out on the road, in an era of dirt paths and exposure, a catastrophic rainstorm nullifies all of that leverage.
Because there are no paved roads.
No. The logistics of travel in that era during a deluge were horrific. The dirt roads turned to impassable, thigh-deep mud.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
Your provisions rot. Your draft animals break their legs or just freeze.
And you can't exactly pay the storm to stop.
Right, you cannot bribe the sky to stop raining. You cannot throw gold coins at a flooded river to make it passable.
So the rain basically violently strips Ding of his wealthy, powerful context.
Yes, it takes this formidable, untouchable underground kingpin and reduces him to a shivering, stranded, highly vulnerable human being.
He is left entirely dependent on the physical environment and the people who inhabit it.
Which is a terrifying place for a guy who is used to being in control.
And that brings us to the door he knocks on.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't just, find an abandoned barn to hide in. He is actively taken in.
Yes, by a family.
And the situation he walks into is almost as desperate as his own, just on the totally opposite end of the spectrum.
Right, they aren't running from the law, they're just trying to survive.
Ding is taken in by a youth who explains he's the nephew of the woman of the house.
Yeah.
The master of the house, a man named Yang, is currently out.
And despite the obvious grinding poverty of the physical space, this youth provides incredibly generous food and lodging.
He even goes out of his way to stable and feed Ding's animal.
Which is huge. Feeding a large draft animal, like a horse or a mule, in a pre-industrial agrarian setting is an enormous drain on resources.
Because they eat a lot.
They require substantial amounts of grain and dry fodder, which are the exact resources a poverty-stricken family lacks.
And the youth actually apologizes profusely for the poverty of the home.
Yes, which gives us a clear window into their socioeconomic reality. He reveals that his uncle, Master Yang, has absolutely zero assets.
None.
He barely survives by running a daily gambling operation.
Okay, running a daily gambling operation sounds glamorous in a movie, like James Bond at a casino. But in this context, it is the absolute bottom rung of the ladder, right?
Completely. We are not talking about a casino owner here.
Yeah.
We are talking about a petty street hustler. Someone who sets up a dice game in a muddy alley or a tavern, just trying to scrape together enough copper coins by nightfall to buy a single measure of millet for his family.
Wow. So it's literally hand to mouth.
It is a totally precarious feast or famine existence, and the author is deliberately setting up this stark structural contrast.
Between Ding and Yang.
Exactly. We have Ding, a man of immense stable wealth who operates outside the law as a vigilante, and now we meet Yang, a man of absolute poverty who also operates in the margins of society as a petty vice peddler.
They are both outcasts, but occupying totally different stratospheres of power.
Yes. And importantly, Yang isn't even present. The hospitality is being orchestrated by his unseen wife.
Right, managed through the nephew.
Exactly.
And it's the second night where things escalate from merely generous to absolutely mind-boggling.
This is where the story gets legendary.
Yeah. The unceasing rain continues. They're completely socked in. So the youth goes out to feed Ding's animal again.
Standard host duties, supposedly.
But Ding is an observant guy. You don't survive as a vigilante kingpin by being oblivious to your surroundings, right?
They'd be dead in a week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he looks at the fodder the animal was eating, and he notices it is wet, and the cuts are all uneven and jagged.
It's clearly not standard animal feed.
No. So he questions the youth about it.
And the text hinges on this exact realization. The youth confesses the truth. He tells Ding that their family is so destitute they have absolutely nothing left to feed the animal.
No grain, no hay, nothing.
So his aunt, the lady of the house, went out into the storm and literally dismantled the thatched roof of their home.
It's just unbelievable.
She pulled the physical thatch down, chopped it up unevenly, so the guest's animal would have something to eat.
Okay, wait, hold on. Because I'm putting myself in the shoes of a petty gambler's family.
Okay, plead devil's advocate.
Gamblers are hustlers. They read people, they look for marks all day, and they have this guy sheltering in their house who clearly looks like a man of means.
Yeah.
Even if his clothes are wet, they are probably silk.
Hmm.
He's traveling with a valuable animal. Isn't it way more likely they saw a rich guy and thought, if we ruin our cheap $50 roof for this guy, he's going to feel so incredibly guilty that he'll give us $500 to replace it?
So it's a scam.
Yeah. This feels like a highly calculated investment, a hustle, not some profound act of radical kindness.
Well, your skepticism is entirely justified, and more importantly, it mirrors the exact reaction of Ding Qiangxi himself.
Really? He thinks it's a scam too.
Of course he does. Ding is a man of the world. He navigates a subculture built on favors, extortion, and calculated debts.
Right, he's a mob boss.
The text explicitly notes that upon hearing about the roof, Ding immediately assumes they did this to get a reward. He assumes there is an angle. He assumes this is a dramatic opening bid in a negotiation. In his world, everything is a transaction. You provide a service, you extract a payment.
Exactly. The code of the street is all built on IOUs. You give me a roof, I pay you double its worth. That's how a boss maintains his reputation.
Yep.
He doesn't like being in debt to anyone, especially some peasant he doesn't know.
So the next morning, as the weather presumably clears, or he simply decides he has to brave the storm to stay ahead of the censor, Ding prepares to leave.
And he's ready to pay up.
He does what any wealthy power broker who assumes he's being hustled would do. He pulls out his gold.
Naturally.
He offers them a substantial amount of money, an amount that would far, far exceed the cost of replacing a few bundles of wet thatch.
He wants to settle the ledger.
Exactly. Clear the debt and walk away with a clean conscience.
But they refuse it, completely turn him down.
Which totally throws him.
And Ding, being the guy he is, forces the gold onto the youth. He practically demands they take it, shoves it into the kid's hands, and just leaves. Transaction closed.
Except it isn't.
No, because shortly after, the youth comes running after him down the muddy road. He returns the gold to Ding, and he relays a message directly from the unseen wife.
And this message completely shatters Ding's worldview.
Yeah, the wife's message is, we do not do this for profit. My husband is out and sometimes goes days without making a single coin. When a guest comes to our home, how can we demand repayment?
The philosophy embedded in the wife's message is profound. It completely turns standard economic logic on its head.
Totally upside down.
I mean, a rational economist looking at a starving family would scream, take the gold, you have no assets, your husband makes pennies, take the windfall.
Make the money and fix your roof.
But the wife's reasoning operates on a completely different moral axis. She points out their extreme poverty-going days without a single coin, not as a complaint, but as her qualification for empathy.
Wow, that's powerful.
The text implies that precisely because they live a precarious feast or famine lifestyle, they possess a pure, unclouded understanding of vulnerability.
They know what it's like to have nothing.
They live every single day on the edge of ruin. So when a desperate, terrified stranger arrives at their door seeking sanctuary, they recognize that vulnerability intimately.
It's like a shared trauma.
Exactly. And because they recognize it, they refuse to commodify their response to it. They refuse to put a price tag on human sanctuary.
It's just an incredible role reversal. The wealthy knight-errant, the guy who is supposedly the hero of justice in his hometown, naturally assumes everything has a price tag.
He views human interaction through the lens of commerce and calculated debt.
Right, while the penniless gambler's wife, living in the literal dirt, treats hospitality as something sacred, something completely beyond commerce.
We can look at this through the traditional Chinese cultural concept of bao, which translates roughly to reciprocity or karmic return.
Okay, bao.
In Ding's world, bao is immediate and transactional. You give me shelter, I give you gold, the bao is settled.
Nice and clean.
But the wife is refusing a transactional bao. She is stating that her poverty does not diminish her humanity, it heightens it.
Because to accept the gold would be to turn her act of radical empathy into just like a business transaction.
It would cheapen the sacrifice. By insisting on giving freely, she fundamentally alters the power dynamic between the wealthy fugitive and the starving peasants.
She completely strips him of his power. Ding thought he was the generous, powerful one dispensing gold from on high. But by rejecting his money, The wife retains the absolute moral high ground.
She turns this untouchable underworld boss into a pure beneficiary of her grace.
He can't buy his way out of this one.
No, he can't. And the impact on Ding is immediate. He leaves that ruined house not just physically saved from the storm and the authorities, but morally challenged.
He has probably never experienced anything like this.
The text says he leaves his name, saying, "I am Ding from Zucheng," and he extends an open, standing invitation for the husband to visit him anytime.
He tells the nephew, when your master returns, tell him to come see me.
He leaves Ankhui carrying a debt that goes far, far beyond money. He owes them a spiritual debt of honor.
So we have this massive unpayable debt established, and then the story executes a brutal time jump.
It fast-forwards several years.
Yeah, it pulls us entirely out of the rainstorm and drops us into a totally different kind of environmental disaster.
Because the roles of the wealthy and the desperate are about to be violently reversed.
A severe famine strikes the region.
The transition in the text is really abrupt. We don't know the specifics of how Ding resolved his legal troubles with the imperial censor.
Probably bribery.
Given his wealth and influence, it's highly probable the political heat eventually died down, bribes were paid at higher levels, or the censor just moved on to other provinces.
So Ding returns to his comfortable, powerful life in Zucheng.
Yes. But for Yang, the petty gambler in Ankhui, life takes a catastrophic turn.
Because of the famine.
When a text from this era mentions a severe famine, we really have to understand the horrific societal breakdown of agrarian collapse in Qing China. It is not simply a matter of food being expensive.
Right, it's total ecological and social collapse. We're talking about the complete failure of crops, which means the local economy basically evaporates overnight.
Exactly.
For a guy like Yang, whose entire income relies on people having disposable copper coins to gamble with in the alleyways, a famine means his income drops to absolute zero instantly.
Precisely. Starvation sets in rapidly. Historical accounts of these famines describe people eating tree bark, boiling leather, selling their children, and eventually the complete breakdown of civil order.
It's horrific.
Yang's family is pushed to the absolute brink of death.
And in this moment of ultimate grinding desperation, it is once again the wife who takes the initiative.
She remembers the wealthy guest from years ago, the fugitive whose horse ate their roof.
She urges Yang, you must go to Zucheng. You must find him.
So Yang, weak, starving, and terrified, makes the long, arduous journey to Zucheng.
For Yang, like, you are a hustler from the slums. You are starving. Your clothes are literal rags.
He's at rock bottom.
You have walked miles upon miles, and you finally arrive at the massive, imposing gates of a wealthy estate.
A place he doesn't belong at all.
Right. And you are pinning the actual physical survival of your wife and children on a promise made by a guy who stayed in your house for 2 nights years ago.
A guy he wasn't even there to meet.
Exactly. So you walk up to the doorman, you swallow your pride, you announce yourself saying, I am Yang from Ankhui, and the doorman goes to relay the message.
And this is where the text gets so brutally realistic.
Ding has absolutely no memory of him. None. He draws a complete blank.
It is one of the most striking psychological details in the narrative.
It really is.
The author, Pu Songling, could have easily written a fairy tale where Ding thinks of his saviors every single day, waiting faithfully by the window for them to arrive.
Right, a Disney ending.
But instead, he grounds the story in harsh, uncomfortable reality. Ding forgot.
Which hurts to read.
It does, but consider the psychology of wealth and power. Ding manages a vast estate, handles complex underground affairs, negotiates with rival factions, and meets hundreds of people.
His life is incredibly dense.
Yes. The traumatic night in the rain years ago simply faded into the background noise of a busy, powerful man's life.
Proximity to power often diminishes the memory of the marginalized. It's like finding an old, forgotten IOU stuffed in a drawer. Except this IOU is attached to a starving man standing at your front door.
It's the ultimate awkward situation.
You can imagine the sheer crushing humiliation Yang must have felt. He's standing in the dirt, his stomach growling, the well-fed servants probably looking at him like he's absolute trash.
Judging him.
And the master of the house sends word back. Yang who? Never heard of him. It is the ultimate nightmare scenario.
He is facing the reality that his wife tore apart their home for nothing.
Yeah.
The anxiety of that rejection must have been suffocating. But the text emphasizes that Ding's failure is merely one of recall, not of character.
Okay, that's an important distinction.
The doorman, or perhaps Yang pressing the issue, manages to relay enough specific details. They mention the unceasing rainstorm, the town of Ankhui, or maybe the torn thatched roof.
The details that trigger the memory.
Yes. And the moment those details align, the activation of that memory triggers an explosive physical reaction in Ding.
Explosive is almost an understatement. The text says that the moment he remembers, Ding literally runs out of the house.
He sprints.
He doesn't wait for his servants to bring him his formal outer garments or his proper shoes. He sprints out to the front gate in only his socks or indoor slippers to welcome Yang personally.
And we have to unpack the cultural significance of that action.
Because it's not just him being in a hurry.
Not at all. Running out to greet a guest without proper footwear is a classic, deeply ingrained literary signifier in Chinese texts.
What does it mean?
It denotes ultimate eagerness, profound respect, and the sudden, total abandonment of all formal decorum in the face of genuine reverence.
Wow.
In a highly stratified society where a man of Ding's status would normally force a peasant to wait for hours just to show dominance, sprinting into the dirt in his socks is a radical act of equalization.
It proves that his code of honor isn't performative.
Exactly. He isn't sending a servant out with a pity bag of rice to get rid of a beggar. He is physically rushing to embrace a savior.
So he gets to the gate, sees Yang's torn clothes, sees his starving frame, and he immediately pulls him inside.
Doesn't even hesitate.
He doesn't just feed him in the kitchen, right? He puts him in a warm, comfortable room and throws an absolute feast in his honor.
A banquet.
He treats him not like a desperate beggar asking for a handout, but like an arriving king. He is genuinely overjoyed to finally pay this debt back.
The speed with which Yang's shame and terror are replaced by overwhelming warmth and luxury is breathtaking. Ding is showering him with the physical security that Yang has never known.
He gives him the best food, the warmest room, new clothes.
But the author introduces a brilliant structural tension here.
Oh, yeah.
Because despite this incredibly warm welcome, as the days pass, a fascinating, agonizing psychological friction develops between the two men.
Because the clock is ticking back home. The next day, Ding gives Yang beautiful, warm, new clothes. He's treating him incredibly well. But one day passes. 2 days pass. Several days go by, and Ding is an amazing host, but he says absolutely nothing about a parting gift.
Nothing at all.
He says nothing about giving Yang money or grain to take back home. He just keeps hosting him.
We have to analyze Yang's growing internal terror here.
I can't even imagine.
Put yourself in his position. He is sitting in a warm mansion, wearing fine silk, eating rich, fatty meats. But what is waiting for him at home?
The starving wife in a famine-stricken wasteland.
Exactly. Every single bite of food Yang takes must taste like ash when he realizes his wife isn't eating it. Every day he sits in that warm room is a day his family might cross the threshold of starvation.
It makes him so human. He's trapped in this gilded cage of hospitality.
He really is.
He can't just rudely demand money and leave because Ding is being so overwhelmingly nice to him. It would violate every rule of etiquette to interrupt a feast to ask for cash.
It would be incredibly offensive.
But he's terrified. He is enjoying unimaginable luxury while the clock is running out on his family's survival.
The anxiety builds and builds until he finally breaks.
He can't take the polite silence anymore.
Yang finally confesses his terror to Ding. He admits the incredibly grim reality of his situation. He drops the pleasantries and says, "I cannot hide this from you anymore. When I left my home to come find you, my family had less than a single measure of rice left."
Which is days ago at this point.
Exactly. He says, "I am deeply grateful for the clothes and the food you've given me here. But what about my wife? What is happening to my children?"
He lays his ultimate desperation completely bare.
He risks the wealthy man's anger by demanding action.
And Ding's response is so calm, it's almost maddening.
It's very cool and collected.
Ding basically smiles and tells him not to worry. He says, "Please, put your mind at ease. I have already taken care of it."
Which sounds completely crazy to Yang.
Right. And then he promises to give Yang some travel money when he's finally ready to leave, already taken care of it. What does that even mean to a guy whose wife is starving hundreds of miles away?
It is a cryptic, almost dismissive sounding comfort, but Ding is operating on a level of logistical and psychological brilliance that Yang cannot yet comprehend.
He has a plan.
A brilliant one. Ding then executes one of the most masterful acts of repayment in literature. He doesn't just hand Yang a heavy sack of gold.
Which he could easily do.
He could. Instead, Ding gathers a group of his friends, presumably wealthy associates, fellow power brokers, local gamblers. He organizes a massive high-stakes gambling night right there in his estate.
Okay.
And he has Yang sit at the table.
But Yang doesn't have any money to gamble with. If he loses, he's in even worse shape.
That is the genius of it.
Ugh.
Ding doesn't make him gamble his own non-existent money. He has Yang sit and manage the game, acting as the house. Yang takes a cut or a commission of the winnings all night long. Ding ensures that a massive amount of wealth flows across that table. And Yang, utilizing his own familiar skills as a gambling manager, skims his percentage.
That's so smart.
Over the course of a single night, Yang nets 100 gold pieces, a staggering, life-altering fortune. And then, only then, does Ding send him home.
I want to really dig into the emotional intelligence of this move.
It's fascinating, right?
Why go through this elaborate charade? Why didn't Ding just hand him a bag of gold? The guy was starving. He wouldn't have cared. He would have taken the hand out and ran.
You have to look at this through the cultural lens of Mianzi, or face.
Pace, right.
Yeah.
The concept of dignity, prestige, and social standing.
Exactly. By organizing a gambling night and letting Yang take the cut, Ding uses Yang's own profession, his own specific set of skills, to funnel the money to him.
To make it feel earned.
Think about the psychology of charity. Handing a starving man a bag of gold is an act of pure charity. It powerfully reinforces the massive inequality between them.
The rich man gives, the poor man receives.
It requires the poor man to be a beggar, stripping him of his agency.
But making him earn it at the card table.
It masks the charity as professional compensation. Ding curates this entire experience, so Yang feels like he is operating in his own element.
He is managing a table. He is taking his rightful cut.
It preserves the man's dignity entirely. Ding turns his wealthy estate into a late-night casino, specifically designed as a convoluted, deeply respectful way to hand a desperate man 100 pieces of gold without breaking his pride.
He allows Yang to return home, not as a beggar who got lucky, but as a man who plied his trade and won big. It's incredible. It's like saying, I respect you too much to just give you a handout, so I'm going to set up a rigged casino where you are guaranteed to walk away a rich man through your own work.
It's a masterclass in preserving someone's dignity.
It really is. But it still leads the lingering question. What did Ding mean when he said he had already taken care of it regarding Yang's starving wife?
That cryptic comment is immediately and spectacularly resolved when Yang finally makes the long journey back to his home in Anqui.
So he travels back, clutching his 100 pieces of gold, deeply anxious about what he is going to find.
He must have been terrified.
He left his wife with a handful of rice. He's been gone for days, maybe weeks with travel time. He walks up to his house, probably expecting to find a tragic scene.
The scene of death, honestly.
But the house is transformed. He walks in and finds his wife beautifully dressed. She is wearing fine clothes, she looks incredibly healthy, and she's being attended to by a newly purchased maid.
The shock must have been profound. He left a hovel of starvation and returns to a home of comfortable, established wealth.
And the wife explains the mystery.
She tells Yang that the very day after he left for Zucheng, a massive caravan arrived at their door.
Just showed up out of nowhere.
Carts filled to the brim with fine cloth, with mountains of grain, with endless provisions. They literally filled the entire house with resources.
And the people delivering it just said, this is sent by guesting.
The guy who stayed for 2 nights years ago.
He didn't just send food. He sent a maid to serve the wife.
You can see the mechanics of Ding's logistical masterpiece playing out here.
Yes.
When Yang arrived in Zucheng and Ding finally remembered who he was, Ding didn't just throw a feast. While Yang was eating and being fitted for new clothes, Ding immediately dispatched a massive, fast-moving caravan of wealth back to Anqui.
He knew the wife was starving now.
He knew Yang's journey back would take too long, so he sent the relief instantly, moving faster than a single traveler could, while intentionally keeping Yang delayed and distracted in Zucheng so the surprise would be complete.
That completely explains the delay.
Exactly.
He kept Yang there for days, letting him stew in anxiety, not to be cruel, but to give his supply chain time to reach the wife.
He was buying time for the grain carts to arrive?
It is a staggering level of coordination and care. He managed the logistics of saving her life while managing the psychology of saving the husband's pride.
It is absolute overwhelming reciprocation. The family that tore off their roof to feed his horse is now buried in grain and silk.
And deeply moved by this, the text notes a significant change in the family's trajectory.
Right, because now they are comfortably wealthy, they completely abandon the gambling business.
They don't need to hustle in the shadows of the alleyways anymore. They step into the light of comfortable society. And that brings us to the author's final verdict, because Pu Songling often ends his stories with a little philosophical commentary.
He steps out from behind the narrative curtain to tell you what it all meant.
Yes, the historian of the strange, as he calls himself, offers an explicit moral framework to close the narrative.
He dissects the actions of all the characters. He starts by noting something very interesting about Yang's profession.
The gambling.
Right. He states that actually poor gambling types people who live fast and loose with money, who experience wild swings of fortune, often have a reputation for being quite hospitable.
Because they understand intimately that money comes and goes.
Exactly. So they are often free with what they have. Easy come, easy go.
If you might lose everything tomorrow at the dice table, you might as well buy your buddy a drink today. It's a casual generosity born of instability.
But the author immediately pivots. He says that while gamblers might be casually generous, the truly extraordinary figure in this entire saga is the unseen wife.
She's the real hero.
He elevates her as the absolute moral center of the story, because her generosity wasn't the casual throwing around of gambling winnings.
Her generosity was tearing down her own shelter.
Giving without expecting any return, refusing the gold when it was offered, insisting on the pure sanctity of hospitality, the author states that this is incredibly rare.
Yeah.
He asks, rhetorically, to give and not expect a return. Is this not the highest form of humanity?
It's fascinating. In a story titled Ding Kainsey, featuring this wealthy, badass knight-errant and a desperate, hustling gambler, the author points a spotlight at the unnamed wife in the background and says, she is the true hero.
It completely subverts our expectations of historical hero stories.
The guy with the sword running from the imperial censor isn't the moral paragon. The starving woman ripping up her roof is.